In the past 2 weeks, the situation in East Asia has suddenly escalated rapidly. China has amassed an unusually large number of naval and coast guard vessels near the East China Sea and Yellow Sea. On December 6, Chinese warplanes twice used radar to illuminate Japanese self-defense force aircraft in the waters near Okinawa. Meanwhile, a seemingly simple Ayumi Hamasaki concert in Shanghai ignited a social media frenzy and even drew into a political storm due to images of empty seats. What is the connection between these events? Is East Asia approaching a new critical point? Today we'll provide an in-depth analysis. First, let's look at the background of this rapid escalation of Sino-Japanese relations. On November 7th, Japanese Prime Minister Sanya Takeichi stated in the Diet in response to a member's question that if China were to use warships to attack Taiwan, it would constitute a survival crisis for Japan, as defined by the Peace and Security Law, thus allowing Japan to take collective self-defense action. Takeichi's remarks immediately triggered a fierce backlash from the Chinese government. Xu Jian, the Chinese consul general in Osaka, posted in Japanese on the X website, "That dirty head that charged forward must be cut off without hesitation. Are you ready?" Leaders of both the ruling and opposition parties in Japan interpreted this as a death threat and demanded Xu Jian's expulsion. Diplomatic relations between the two countries rapidly deteriorated. An even more serious incident occurred at 6:37 p.m. on December 6, when a Japan Air Self-Defense Force pilot was patrolling at an altitude of several thousand meters over the waters of Okinawa in an F-15J heavy fighter jet. Suddenly, a sharp, rapid beeping sound came through the pilot's headset. This sound was from the radar in the cockpit, warning that a radar beam was sweeping across the aircraft. Simultaneously, the red threat warning light on the aircraft's head-up display flashed frantically, displaying a fatal code, "Lock On." In aerial combat terminology, lock on means being targeted by another aircraft's missile. With a simple press of a button, an air-to-air missile can appear within visual range within seconds, turning the aircraft into a fireball in the night sky. Moreover, this deadly lock-on occurred a second time, lasting for over 30 minutes. This situation is typically only seen in actual warfare. For both China and Japan, this was a blatant test of the brink of war. After this incident, military observers worldwide were in an uproar, questioning whether the CCP had gone mad. In response, in the early morning of December 7th, the Japanese Ministry of Defense unusually held an emergency press conference. Japanese Defense Minister Shinjiro Kozumi confirmed that the J-15 fighter jets launched from the Chinese aircraft carrier Liaoning had twice illuminated Japanese Self-Defense Force aircraft with their radar. This action exceeded the necessary scope for safe flight and was a dangerous act. Japan has lodged a strong protest with China and solemnly demanded that the CCP take measures to prevent similar incidents from happening again. On the same day, Japanese Prime Minister Takeichi also commented on the incident. This radar illumination behavior exceeded the scope necessary to ensure the safe flight of aircraft and was an extremely dangerous act. We deeply regret this incident and have lodged a strong protest with China, solemnly demanding that it not happen again. We will respond calmly and resolutely. In response to this incident, Japan stated that it would take all possible measures to strengthen surveillance of the sea and air and closely monitor the activities of the CCP military. The CCP denied Japan's claims and blamed Japan for the incident. They even countered by criticizing Japan for hyping up the matter, exaggerating tensions, and misleading the international community. According to reports, the Self-Defense Force aircraft maintained a safe distance and carried out missions to combat airspace violations. Therefore, China's claim that Self-Defense Force aircraft seriously hindered the safe flight of Chinese aircraft is baseless. This action by the Chinese military has led China experts to believe that the CCP's provocative behavior is extremely dangerous and highly aggressive. So this approach is like being just one button away from fire, roughly equivalent to a hostile act on the brink of war. The CCP has recently used similar tactics multiple times, which are highly aggressive. This is an action authorized by the CCP authorities, which poses a direct threat to regional stability and peace. Secondly, from a diplomatic perspective, the CCP's approach is actually very unwise, essentially demonstrating to other democratic countries the risks of this wolf warrior diplomacy and military expansionism, thus further uniting the democratic countries. This so-called military pressure from the CCP will only result in a backlash. Currently, among the US's allies in the Asia-Pacific region, Japan has the strongest military. Therefore, this military pressure from the CCP will lead to increased military spending by Prime Minister Takeichi in Japan. In fact, this will be more beneficial to Takeichi's future governance. Just like every time the CCP uses military force to threaten Taiwan, every time Taiwan has a presidential election, the CCP conducts many military exercises to put pressure on Taiwan, but in the end, it always backfires. On December 4th, Reuters, based on 4 sources and intelligence reports, revealed a startling piece of news. China is deploying a large number of naval and coast guard vessels in East Asian waters, exceeding 100 at one point. This is the largest naval show of force to date, surpassing the CCP's large-scale naval deployment last December. The deployment of these warships extends from the southern Yellow Sea through the East China Sea and the South China Sea to the Pacific Ocean. Meanwhile, in Japan, the number of sorties by the Japan Air Self-Defense Force over Okinawa and Kyushu has increased significantly. The distance between the two countries' military aircraft and warships is visibly decreasing. Let's hear the analysis from Jiang Feng, a host on a US political commentary channel, who says that Xi Jinping wants to achieve 3 objectives with his deployment of 100 warships by the CCP.
100多艘涂着灰的发黑的战舰
More than 100 CCP warships painted a dark gray are pointing their cannons at Taiwan, Japan, and all forces upholding freedom of navigation in the region. What is Xi Jinping calling this? This is killing 3 birds with 1 stone. It's a vicious scheme. First, he's doing this for domestic consumption. What is the state of China's economy now? Everyone knows, a complete mess. The people are full of complaints and the social atmosphere is frighteningly tense. Every now and then there are incidents of cars running across zebra crossings, killing or injuring pedestrians. Xi is inciting nationalist sentiment. This is an old tactic. He's telling people, although you can't afford meat, the country is strong. Look, all nations are paying tribute and hundreds of ships are sailing the seas. Secondly, taking advantage of President Trump's return to the White House and the drastic adjustment of its global strategy, the CCP is conducting a massive stress test. I've deployed my fleet right to your doorstep. I've even simulated cutting off any supply lines to Taiwan. How would you react? What capabilities do you have to respond? The most insidious move was recently when Macron, during his visit to China, was seen running in shorts in Chengdu. These actions were meant for an appeasement of Europe. The subtext was, Europeans take note. In Asia, I'm the boss. If you dare to speak out on the Taiwan issue and try to join the US in sanctioning me, I can throw the world into chaos. Aren't you afraid of war? I'll shut you up on the Taiwan issue. This is the true face of the Chinese Communist Party. Talking about a community with a shared future for mankind while holding the nuclear button to drag humanity into war. Wang Jian, host of the YouTube channel Wang Jian's Daily Observations, also said, Beijing wants to test the reactions of various countries through this unprecedented deployment. Ultimately, it will lead to new changes in military risks in East Asia. This time, the PLA's naval deployment is mainly along the southern island chain of Taiwan, heading towards the East China Sea, showing a clear characteristic of putting pressure on Japan. Judging from the characteristics of the deployment, this year's operation is larger in scale and wider in scope, reflecting Beijing's adjustment of its regional deterrence layout, projecting more military pressure onto Japan, responding to the strengthening of the US-Japan alliance, and Japan's increased role in regional and East Asian security affairs. As the PLA's buildup continues, the tension in East Asia is further escalating, ultimately leading to a new structural change in the military risks in the East Asian region.
最终导致东亚地区的军事风险呈新的结构性的变化。问题来了。
Furthermore, the Chinese government has simultaneously canceled economic cooperation between China and Japan, canceled numerous flights, restricted Chinese citizens' travel to Japan, and limited cultural activities of Japanese artists in China. On November 28th, Japanese singer Ayumi Hamasaki received notification that due to force majeure, her 10,000-person tour concert originally scheduled for the 29th at the Shanghai Oriental Sports Center had been cancelled. Ayumi Hamasaki is the highest-selling artist in Japan history and the only female singer in history to have won the Japan Record Award, the highest honor in the Japanese music industry, for 3 consecutive years. Jiang Feng offered a very insightful analysis of this. Let's take a look.
当天下午，他在自己的官方 Instagram 上发表了一则声明。
That afternoon, Ayumi Hamasaki posted on her official Instagram. She issued a statement first expressing her disbelief and saying she had to personally dismantle the stage, then adding a meaningful line. I don't intend to speak out on areas I don't understand. Did you hear all that? That's called being neither humble nor arrogant. The implication is that she's a singer. She doesn't understand your dirty politics. Don't try to force her to take sides, and don't try to make her a mouthpiece of your diplomatic maneuvering. In her statement, she wasn't concerned about how much money she lost, but rather about the approximately 100 Chinese staff members who poured their hearts and souls into the stage. So everyone, look at this contrast. A Japanese entertainer who cares about the Chinese people, the Chinese working class, while the Chinese Communist Party government, which claims to serve the people, ruthlessly destroyed the livelihoods of over 100 workers for the sake of its so-called face. What did Ayumi Hamasaki do after issuing this statement? Friends, this scene truly deserves a place in the annals of Sino-Japanese cultural exchange. After receiving the cancellation notice, she didn't retreat, she didn't complain, but instead, with her entire dance troupe and band, dressed in her most glamorous costumes and with her most perfect makeup, she meticulously performed the entire concert, from the first song to the final encore, in the empty Shanghai Oriental Sports Center, facing 14,000 empty seats. She used a very professional term on social media. What was it called? It was called Lance Through. This was different from the rehearsal. It was a full rehearsal, meaning that everything, lighting, sound, explosions, choreography, was executed to the standards of a live performance, except for the audience. The stadium was empty, only the stage lights shone brightly, and Ayumi Hamasaki sang to the empty space like a warrior. She said on Instagram, "Even facing empty chairs, I felt the love of fans all over the world. This was my most unforgettable performance. What is dignity? What is honor? This is it." The CCP wanted to humiliate her, to make her look pathetic, but she, with an almost sacred professionalism, turned this humiliation into performance art. In that empty venue, Ayumi Hamasaki's figure appeared incredibly tall, while those CCP officials who issued orders to ban the performance in the darkness seemed so petty and despicable.
封杀演出的那些中共官员显得是那么的猥琐小家子气。
After the empty concert, Ayumi Hamasaki also stated that she would release the live recording at an appropriate time to give her fans an explanation. Ayumi Hamasaki's dedication, selflessness, and gratitude towards her fans have touched countless netizens who have left comments on X. What has Ayumi Hamasaki shown the world? This is civilization, what respect is, what dignity is. Ayumi Hamasaki single-handedly made the world see how disgusting the CCP is. At this point, the artistic content has far surpassed that of a normally held concert, becoming a perfect masterpiece. This concert can be called a classic performance of the century. Every time the CCP makes a blunder, it elevates the event to a new level. This time it's all good. The whole world knows her, losing a theater but gaining the world. Currently, the situation in East Asia, from diplomacy and military to cultural events, is showing a trend of multi-line escalation. In the next 30 days, the situation has 3 possible directions. First, military signals continue, but a non-collision line is maintained. Both sides continue to compete but avoid accidental clashes. Second, diplomatic tensions escalate with rare high-level condemnations or the recall of ambassadors. Third, and the least desirable scenario, regional events trigger a chain reaction, leading to war between China and Japan. Although we haven't reached a critical point yet, all parties are observing every move between China and Japan with heightened sensitivity. That's all for today. If you enjoy our content, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe, leave a comment, and share it with a friend. We appreciate your support, and we'll see you next time.